No one saw that at all. Gonna have to remember to trim that from the VOD. Alrighty. Let me let people know that I'm live. Ah. Okay. I've let people know that I am live. I've shared it. Alrighty. Let people know. I think I let everybody know I'm live, so I think I can switch over to the just chatting screen. So much noise. Everybody knows I'm live? Okay. Okay, Silva. Alright, I'm changing screens then. I just updated Stream OBS, so hopefully things work out pretty well. Boop a doop a doop a doop a doop a doop doop doop. Come on, there we go. Oh, here, let me turn on the backlight. It's funny how like I stream on a regular basis, but streams still sneak up on me. Where like I'm scrambling at the last second. It's funny. It's kind of humorous. I was watching my friend Hero Girl stream earlier, and she's still streaming right now. But it was just had to get moving to my stuff because I gotta do my thing. It's funny, my friend's kid was just like, "Hey, here's the password of the computer that I just got from school in case you ever want to go play on it." And I'm like, I have my own computer. I don't need your password. And they just kept being insistent. So I was like, okay, fine. I'll take the password. I figured I'll just hang on to it in case the kid forgets their password. And I'm like, I'm busy. I have stuff I have to do. And they're like, why are you busy all the time? And I'm like, that's just because of how my life works. Because depression and anxiety and all that stuff are kind of hard to explain to a 9-year-old. But goodness gravy. So last night I watched Critical Role, and like leading up, so the episodes are recorded in advance because like the group has scheduling things, and that means that they don't have to deal with stuff happening while they're live and like all that stuff, right? So that way and if anything happens, if anybody says something they shouldn't, or any mistakes happen, they can bleep them out, edit them out, what have you. Just standard production stuff. We don't know how long they record them beforehand. My theory is that they record them like a week or two ahead of time. And you know, that's my theory about it. I don't have any proof, and that's fine. But so leading up to the episode, right? People from Critical Role were tweeting and saying stuff like, "You don't want to miss this episode." Like one, I think it was Marisha Ray was one of them. I think that's Matt Mercer's wife. Yeah, I think, let me see. I think it was Marisha Ray who said something like, "You don't want to you don't want to miss this episode," or something. Yeah, she said tonight's episode of Critical Role, it's well, I wouldn't miss it if I were you, right? And that got everyone spooked, right? And like one of this YouTuber I follow commented like how like quote retweeted was like, "I don't know what this means," and this random person was like, "Trust me, it's gonna be a good one." And then we found out that that random person who replied to their tweet was like a producer, and so like everything was like super intense. We were all like super intense, and I feel really bad because one of my friends was trying to talk to me while this was happening, and I think I might have given some rude replies because I was just replying on autopilot, and I was injecting lol and humor in situations where it wasn't necessary, and I think it might have come off as sarcastic or rude. But I was just like, I was so distracted by what was happening on screen that like trying to respond to Discord messages was hard. And Ooh, ooh. Last night's Critical Role was a doozy. It was so to give some context, right? The party got split. They were trying to stop essentially the end of the world. Which is funny because they're only like level 8. And they're trying to take on a level 20 plus like man who's on a quest to kill all the gods. So they are taking on like an end game level quest as like low level party members. And they obviously failed. At the end, it became not so much about stopping him as much as about lessening the damage that he was going to cause in trying to do that. And then when the big bad MacGuffin activated, the party got split and got teleported. Half the party went to one continent and half the party went to another continent. And Matt Mercer was really slick about it. He tied the nearest town to each party to one of the characters' backstories that hadn't been explored, which worked great with one group, right? Because they explored this character's backstory. But the other group completely missed the plot hook until they'd already left town. They did not find out that like one of the NPCs they were interacting with was from this character's hometown, who's like this character's like an amnesiac, and they found out that this person could have given such intense insights and directions to find their hometown and all of their stuff, but they just didn't bring it up. They didn't ask, and it wasn't patently obvious. So, and there was so much other stuff happening that the characters just walked past it. They didn't find out till they'd already left town. And then it just became like, do we keep moving forward or do we double back? What do we do here? And it's been really interesting seeing how these two groups have gone, because they've had them in separate sessions. I think that the first group had like 10 sessions, and then this group had 5. It was much shorter. It was much more succinct. They spent a lot more time traveling, whereas the other group spent a lot more time in like, there was some short bursts of traveling, but there were some short bursts of traveling with the first group, but most of their stuff was like really close to each other. But the second group had like this really long trek that they had to go through. They had a couple really long treks of traveling and figuring out what was going on. And each group, in order to pad them out and make sure that that it wasn't just 3 people trying to survive these challenges, and to give them more resources, each group got guest stars who came in and played guest characters, right? The first group was made up of 4 people. Wait, was it 4? Yeah. And they got 2 guest characters. One guest character was a past love interest of this other character, Chetney, and the other one was another Aomorton, another robot, which led to the robot's romance. And it's been so interesting because like the first group found peaceful resolutions to most of their problems, were lauded as heroes, I think they got some magic items, and they got some like new fancy clothes, so they all look really cool now. And they uncovered all these things about the past that led to this conflict, and they were just when they were able to negotiate with the temples in order to get the temples to open up and to be more open to the people and trying to do good in the world and make the world better. And then the second group, just random strangers, except they found out last night, hey, Superhero 60, how are you doing? How was your week? We're just chit-chatting before we get to the actual writing for the night. I was talking about the Critical Role episode last night. Critical Role is a very popular Twitch stream. They also do YouTube streams, but it's a live stream where these voice actors play D&D. I don't know if you've heard of it. You're doing great. That's great, Superhero 60. But yeah, so in Critical Role, the party has been split for a while, right? And we had like 10 episodes with one group where they like went through all this stuff, were very productive, made friends, were lauded as heroes, got new clothes, yada yada. And fell in love and all of that, like went on this great, like almost Disney adventure. And then the second group was just really dealing with just like depression and trauma. And it was just really funny seeing how it, like the juxtaposition. And then like just when they were all about to be home free and everybody was going to get sent their separate ways, one of the guests corners one of the other guests that she didn't trust. That was like, tell us who you really are. I don't trust you. Nothing that you've said adds up. And so like your first instinct is to trust the guest star, because of course the guest star is going to be doing thing. They use guest stars to fill out the ranks of their players whenever they're split up. And when it finally comes to it, he admits that he was a member of the villainous organization that they were fighting against, and he saw them fighting and he saw them killing his friends. And so like instead of surrendering, he tries to go down swinging and almost kills one of the other party members whenever he fights. And it was this intense thing. And Ladna, one of the regulars played by Marisha Ray, has this deep and emotional moment where she just straight up kills him. I mean, like death saving throws into actual, like, do the final damage in order to kill him. And that feeds something dark. And one of the things with Ladna's character is in her backstory, she's like, I can't remember the exact name for it, but it's essentially a playable zombie. She's an undead that's a player race in D&D. I think it's like the Reborn or something. Hey Nabiru, yeah. And so when she was revived, she's tethered to this spirit of this dead evil necromancer Delilah, who was using her as a way to try to cling to life. And everybody thought that after Ladna died and they got Ladna revived through this divine means, that Ladna was free of Delilah. And we haven't heard hide nor hair nor peep of Delilah in her mind since. But this act of killing this person who betrayed her and tried to kill her, and like staring into his eyes as she killed him, like woke something dark within her, and she could start hearing the heartbeat of Delilah in the back of her mind. And it's like ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And it was this whole like deep, raw, emotional thing. And like everybody else was kind of like, do we take him alive? Well, not everybody else. Some of the people were like, do we take him alive? You know, you could question him and get information about the Ruby Vanguard from him. And when Ladna looked at Orem, the one who's been, we call him Captain Ashari because he's like Captain America, but he's an Ashari, so he's like tied with the elements and stuff. And he has been their moral compass. He has been their Boy Scout. He has been their person who has kept them tethered uh to the good alignment essentially. He has been the one that has pulled them back every time they've started to go too far. And when she looked to him, he nodded his head like, do it. That was this like, what? The Boy Scout just said, do it, kill him. Well, he's not really a Boy Scout, but you know what I mean. Like they always like you use Boy Scout for that to refer to that stereotypically good character. That's always trying to seek the better result. And then, like there was this moment before when they'd been fighting against the Ruby Vanguard, the bad guys, essentially, and they'd recovered from one of the bodies a locket that had a picture of a family member, and that had made Orem just like really feel really like depressed, like he was regretting what he'd done, and he was questioning if he was on the right side of this conflict. And that had been the whole thing up until this point, was Orem had been really on the fence, had been really questioning if they were doing the right thing fighting the Ruby Vanguard. Yeah, like he had been questioning. Yeah, exactly what you mean. It's gonna cause trouble. Um, and but yeah, Orem had been questioning this whole time. He had been questioning, did we do the right thing? Are we on the right side of this conflict? Should we be fighting to save the gods? Should we be doing all of this stuff? And like this entire adventure, Orem would just felt so lost because he was seeing the bad things being done in the name of the gods, and he was starting to think maybe there was some justice to what was going on, maybe there was some good in what was going on, um, and starting to question things. Uh, and then Borodor turning on them. That was the characters who's just like, I watched you kill my friends, and was like trying to kill them. Just cemented it in his mind, and he takes the locket, he looks at it, and he throws it on Borodor's remains, and he says, "We're at war." And I'm like, yo, like, because the thing is, the Ruby Vanguard killed Orem's father and husband. Um, so like every time they've met someone from or talked to people about the Ruby Vanguard, and they're like, well, the gods, a lot of bad things have been done in the gods' names. The gods haven't done a whole lot of good things for this world, and blah, 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 blah. And they're like, maybe removing the gods might create a better world than all this. Orm's response has always been, I really wish my family didn't have to die in order to make their better world. And he's been questioning that for a while. And he's been questioning, like, was Ludinus justified in this? Was his family a necessary sacrifice to make a better world? And this just cemented, no, they were not. This is war. And it reminds me of that Doctor Who episode that was just like, a good man goes to war, like demons run when a good man goes to war. And like they're gonna reconnect with the rest of their party, and they're gonna be like, well, yeah, that was a great episode. I wish it didn't end with such a horrific moment of finding out that the Doctor had lost. I really was not a big fan of that episode. They had all this build up, and then the Doctor lost in that episode. But then you find out he kind of didn't lose because they pulled that. Yeah, it's just you versus them. Like that Doctor Who episode of Demons Run, and I think it was called like A Good Man Goes to War, whatever. I know it was Matt Smith's Doctor. Um, like they kind of pulled that moment where like they revealed that the baby was a fake and the baby had been taken. Um, and then it was this whole thing where the doctor finally realizes that the baby is going to grow up to become River Song. Um, and I don't even remember what the baby's actual name was. I remember that they got the name River because the only water in the forest is the river. Yeah, it is. It is good, and I think that's going to be interesting to see unfold on Critical Role. Is going to be what happens when, yes, Pond. It was Melody Pond, but uh which became translated into River Song. Right. Mhm. Um but yeah, that was uh anyway, back to Critical Role. It's going to be interesting to see how Critical Role unfolds now that the characters have gone through so much character development, then coming back together, and they've had such vastly different experiences. Um, and also with one group when they're meeting up, they got two guest stars that said they're with them till the end. Well, the characters said they're with them till the end of the line. I don't know what people's schedules look like and whatnot, but I don't know if they're gonna be in the continuing story or what's gonna happen, or if they're just gonna get poofed off by a wizard somewhere. Um, and the second group has one guest star who thought she was being teleported somewhere else, but I guess they're gonna resolve her quest at the start of the next episode because they both had to get out of the same teleportation tree before going on their way. Uh, oh yeah. So you know what that reminds me of, Nabiru? Um, have you ever heard of the false Hydra? Let me grab a picture of it. So you have heard of a false Hydra? Okay. Okay. Then I don't need to show you pictures of its weird elongated faces. I got followed by another VTuber artist. I'm sure that some of them are actual artists. Um, I just don't interact with them. Yeah, sneaky evil concepts are interesting. I always thought so. for any viewers who don't know, a false hydra is a creature that is like a hydra, except instead of being like dragonic or reptilian, all the faces are humanoid. Um, and uh, it when it eats something, it doesn't just eat them; it erases all memory of them. So like any person who had a memory of that person, uh, forgets about them. But it can't erase any written records. It can't erase. It can't like delete their stuff, so their possessions are still there. Um, but just all memory of them is gone. And so like there is a stereotypical way. There is like a stereotypical false hydra adventure, which is where uh you have the party like in a town, get like a painting or something that none of them remembered commissioning, and in the painting is standing with them a bard or something that none of them remember meeting. And then when they go back to their hotel room, they see another person's stuff in the hotel room. Um, and that's when they realize that you invented another character that was a member of their party that is now dead and been eaten by a false hydra. So then, and like the thing is, that only works if the characters know what a false hydra is and know the signs of a false hydra. Um, and a lot of players don't like it because you're inventing an NPC to add to their backstory. That's the other way to do it, is you invent an NPC to have the players recover things belonging to that person with no memory of that person. Um, and then the party has to go on this adventure to find the false hydra and deal with the false hydra before it eats them and before it keeps eating people. Yeah, they'll get confused or annoyed. They'll miss it. And even people who understand what you're doing are going to be like, I don't like you inventing this NPC that I'm supposed to care about, but I had never had any interaction with. Um, and like that's a that's a valid point. I would say for me, if I was gonna run a false hydra, right, I would do it differently, because the players are in, especially in 5th edition, are these larger than life heroes that are supposed to be elevated in a completely different, a breed set apart, a complete different breed from the rest of their peoples, right? uh so uh I would have them feel the memories being ripped out. I would choose an NPC the characters have interacted with before, preferably someone they've had a good interaction with, and I would have them uh, probably just on their way to meet that person roll a wisdom save or something, and like uh, they would feel something try, and if they succeeded the save, they'd feel something trying to pull at their memories but not being able to pull them out. And if they how would you do it to an enemy, Nabaru? Have the players on their way to confront some big bad evil guy and then find out that the big bad evil guy has been consumed by the false hydra and they're the only ones who remember the big bad evil guy? I'm curious, like how would you Party is doing too many nonsense moves. You just have the enemy unalive and say they did it, but don't say how, and just have it so only they remember. So they go to stop someone and find out that the plan's already been foiled, and they got to figure out what happens because no one remembers this. Well, that could be interesting. Is then no one remembers this gang boss or this uh no one remembers this warlord or whatever, and you've got like the second in command is now in charge, and there was never another great warlord. There was never a big bad plan to take over the world. I don't know. I feel like, see, I think this also has to do with the kind of parties I run for, right? I don't run games for parties that are off doing. Yeah, that's the thing. My games that I run don't generally have problem players. At least not recently. I don't generally have players that are just like faffing about, ignoring the story, ignoring the plot hooks, and doing goofy, silly stuff. So I don't generally have to do those kind of actions to like pull them to rein them in. But it's interesting the kinds of things that like we start to do when uh when we get when we aren't engaged. That's one thing I was reading something where someone was talking about how if your players are trying to slay your shopkeepers, it probably means your players are bored with the shopping sequence, and you either need to skip past the shopping sequence to get to something they all want to do, or you need to have a discussion about what people want to do with the campaign. Because if you're expecting there to be a big roleplay heavy campaign with this deep political drama and where every interaction with every NPC matters towards building towards some unfolding mystery, and your players just want to stab things, you are going to have to make some compromises. Because it's a collaborative storytelling effort and everyone needs to be having fun, the GM included. So yeah, that's one important thing. Like I always see all those things with all these tips and tricks and things that people talk about doing in order to control or motivate or guide or wrangle or all that stuff your players. And I think a lot of it would be resolved with just some clear communication above table. Instead of like doing passive aggressive things to control players in game. I think if you just directly talked to people and just said, hey, I noticed you doing this XYZ thing. That's not really something I'm going for this game. Is there something that you'd rather be doing? Is this a response to something? Is there something I'm doing wrong? Is there something that we can change? Maybe not doing wrong, but doing in a way that you're not enjoying. How can we make sure that everybody is having fun at the table? And that's important. Is to make sure everybody's having fun and that you're doing a whole bunch of things that people want to be doing. Yes, that's also true. You have to. One of the problems that a little bit of backstory, a little bit of tangent. We're talking a little bit long tonight anyway because I want to talk about Iron Widow, this book I finished reading. So I want to talk about that. So I'll get to that in a second. But tangent. So I used to run a lot of games, right? I was running D&D 5e for years, literal years. I had a home game that I was running. I was very heavily involved with all the new things and the test plays and all that stuff. Well, I mean, my group was testing out things. We weren't like a test group, or we had no like actual affiliation with anybody. We were just a bunch of people playing home games, but like we felt like we were a part of something, you know, because we were testing this other test material in our games and just playing D&D, and I did it for years. And I got really burnt out on 5th edition. Um, and I started doing mutants and masterminds, and I did mutants and masterminds really heavily for a few years. And then I was behind on my bills, life was happening, stuff was going haywire, my mental illness was getting really bad, and I thought if I cut everything out of my life and just focused entirely on work, if I just focused on work, that I'd be able to catch up on my bills, get ahead on things, and then I could eventually get back to doing things again. So I did. And that only made things worse. That cutting all of my non-work related activities out of my life just stressed me out even harder. And that was not good. And so I eventually, as I started getting help and realizing I needed things in my life, I started easing back into running games, into playing games, to doing things. But I think all of that time of things going from bad to worse had changed some of my habits. And I had this desire to be in control that made it really hard for me to effectively like play in other people's games and run my own games. And I kept over planning. I was over planning. I was planning out every single thing. It was to the point where I should have been just writing a book, because I was over planning every session, and my players were not happy. I was that stereotypical DM that was like essentially railroading the players. And except I wasn't even railroading them anywhere fun. And it took a few years, but it took a couple years for me really to work through that and get to a point where I'm more free flowing, planning things as I go, not planning too far ahead, not over planning, and letting things happen and letting the characters' decisions have weight and change the world and change my plans. Letting the characters' decisions alter my plans, alter my bad guys' plans, and alter the world around them in order to give my players agency in the world. Anyway, that has that was my little spiel about my own mistakes and shortcomings in that matter. So let's talk about Iron Widow. Iron Widow is a book, and is a very good book. Hold on. By Duran J. Zhao, I think. And I have followed Zoran on YouTube and their like rise to YouTube fame since they made their video dunking on the 2020 Mulan live action movie. And I think I've heard mention that they were writing a book and something about it, and I was kind of excited because I heard it was like mech related, and I saw people talking about it. And I didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was mech related. And I saw a YouTube video of theirs where they were talking about their journey to get their first book published, and they mentioned it. They were talking about it. I was like, you know, I should read that book, right? And in the video where they talked about um what it was like for them, the process of for them going from zero to hero, going from start to finish of uh getting a book published. um they talked about this concept that, like, if you want to be a published author in a specific genre, you need to read the stories that come, the successful books that come out of that genre. You can't want to be a member of a certain market and not understand what it takes to consume their products. Then you won't know who you're creating content for. Um, and that kind of resonated with me because I'm like, they're doing uh a mech story. I want to do a mech story. I don't know if my books are going to be YA because my protagonists are generally a little bit older than YA protagonists. Uh, so I don't know. And like in my lore novel, that entire thing is about being an adult. So I don't think that's going to be a YA novel. Um, but it might get classified as such just because I don't use curse words in my writing, and I don't write about sexual things. Um, so I don't know. We'll see where the cookie falls with my writing. But so is this concept that, like, uh if I wanted to consume a lot, I wanted to like make successful media, I needed to consume successful media, have something to be building from. And uh I didn't even when I started hearing, when I got to the part of the video when they were describing their book and describing their journey to get published, um I I didn't even finish the video. I was just like, maybe I should go get the book, right? And then I did, I think it was last week even, I did the collab with Hero Girls. And Hero Girls, she recommended the book, and she told me that it was based on some of the concepts from Darling in the Franxx, which I would have known if I'd finished the video, if I finished Zeran's video about their experiences becoming a published author. But I didn't finish the video, and I was like, oh, really? Huh. And I didn't even know that it was about gender roles or all of that stuff. I just knew it was about mechs and some stuff seeped in Chinese history, and it's with a fantastical magical mecha flair. Um, and it was honestly Hero Girl's recommendation that really got me thinking about getting the book. And if you watch the VOD of that collab, you'll see after Hero Girls mentions it and talks about it, not even realizing my screen was being captured at the time, I open up Amazon to see how much the book is. It was so silly. Um, and so it's that I mentioned it before that, like, I think I mentioned it on Monday that I was thinking about getting the book because um the the hardcover was on sale and the soft cover wasn't. I think you mentioned something, Nabiru, about it being sneaky that the hardcover was on sale but the paperback wasn't. Um and yeah, I ended up getting it, and it's funny. Uh I asked one of the housemates to order it for me because they had Amazon Prime so they could get free delivery, and it came the next day. Like, I talked to them about it, like, I think it was like Tuesday, and it showed up like Wednesday. No, I talked to them on Monday, and it showed up on Tuesday. And then Wednesday and Thursday I read it. I inhaled it. And it's funny. So it's really funny because like Silva had suggested that I get a book to read or something to read in order to help myself wind down at night so I'm not sitting up awake and stuff, right? So originally I'd been like, maybe I'll get this and I'll just read a couple chapters a night and I'll just work my way through it and it'll just be something I sip at over a while. And the only reason I honestly felt comfortable getting it because when I looked on Amazon, it said book 1 of 2. So I'm like, oh, there's a sequel. That means I get to experience more stuff with these characters, right? And then uh I I looked on Amazon. I was like, let me see if the sequel's in stock. Amazon. Amazon was sneaky, Nabiru. They were really sneaky. So Amazon had a price listed for the audiobook, had a price listed for the Kindle, and it just said the hardcover was out of stock. So me being me, I'm like, oh, I'll get, and I don't think it listed anything for the softcover, right? So me being me, I'm like, oh, it must be new, must have just came out. So it's probably sold out right now. So I'm thinking, I'll buy the first book, read the first book, then in a few weeks, like sometime next month when I get next month's money, I'll look into buying the sequel. That's what I thought. That was the whole reason I felt okay with going ahead with ordering the book, was because I'm like, there's 2 books. I get to experience these characters across 2 stories, and I don't have to wait for the sequel, right? That was my exact 1-for-1 thought process, right? I was talking. I just finished the book last night. I just finished Iron Widow last night, and I was talking to Hero Girls about it. And I was like, "Have you read the sequel?" Because I was like, hey, is the sequel good? And Hero Girls is like, yes and no. I've read this book, and I'm like, that's not the sequel. This is the sequel. And uh, she was like, "Oh, is it on pre-order?" And I'm like, "What do you mean pre-order? It's available on Amazon." And I pull up the Amazon link, and I'm like, "Yeah, it came out." And I click, "Oh, publication information." Nabiru. The publication date is like April of 2024 for the next book. It's not out yet. They're selling pre-orders. When I tell you I was shook, I don't like, as far as if I understand this properly, Amazon is literally just selling pre-orders. I was so shaken. I was like, yo, what? The entire reason I felt okay buying this book was because I thought I wouldn't have, well, not the entire reason, but a big part of why I felt okay buying this book was because I was like, oh, I'm not going to have to wait for the sequel, but then find out I have to wait for the sequel. Nabiru, when I tell you, I was shooketh. I was completely shaken. Um, yes, exactly, Nabiru. And the thing is, right? And this is where this is where they got me. The final chapter of the book ends on this really satisfying, really powerful note, right? It's a very satisfying, compelling, powerful, and moving note, right? And then there's the epilogue. So you're like, oh, okay. The story ended really well, and the epilogue is probably going to tie up a loose end here or there, or just be some kind of like really good tie into. That's also true. At least I'm not waiting a month for every chapter. So I'm expecting the epilogue to help tie things up really well, right? Nabiru. The epilogue just straight sets up the next book by asking these questions, doing this huge plot reveal, and pulling the entire rug right from under you and making you question everything you've read so far. And every single thing about the story that you've experienced so far gets called into question in one simple epilogue, and you have no answers because the answers are supposed to be coming in the second book, and the second book isn't out yet. Like I was because like the final chapter just ended really well. Like it was satisfying, it was fulfilling, it was powerful. Yes, Silva laughs in light novels. So like the final chapter was so fulfilling, and then I read the epilogue, and then the epilogue just like killed me, just slayed me, it's unalived me. And because of that, we are doing a writing stream tonight, which we're going to get to the writing. Gave me a lot of thoughts about how to write mech scenes and action sequences and how to write a mech story. Uh, and I originally was going to do a gaming stream. I was going to do a front mission stream, but then I was like, I'm just buzzing with ideas, and I wanna write. So we're going to write tonight. Hmm. Sounds like you got quite the collection, Silva. So do you own them physically, or do you read them like through like a Kindle or something? What's worse, Nabiru? Trying to talk to a light novel reader about a story when you only read the manga. Oh, that sounds really frustrating, Nabiru. Let's change up the music a little bit. Get to some synth wave. All right. Of course, as soon as I do that. Yeah, manga. Well, the thing is, there's just different scales of how much information you can make available in any given media. Like, you can give more detail and description in a novel than you can translate into a comic, and more stuff you can get in a comic or in a visual medium, or in a comic or a long form visual medium like that, like a manga, than you can fit into like a movie, which is more of a short form. uh like trying to compress these ideas down doesn't always work, which is one of the interesting things. Well, yeah, that's what I mean, Silva. That I guess comes down to a production decision. I guess it might just be more costly. Well, if it's graphic or violent, but also it depends on if, especially if you're translating from a light novel, they probably look at what chapters sold the best to get an idea of uh, what they can avoid animating or drawing, because it's going to be more expensive to draw something than to have someone write about it in a light novel. So like actually animating it, not animating it, actually putting it in uh actually putting it in the manga might not be cost efficient. It might be easier for them to just do a time skip or to just not even line up the timelines correctly, just goof with it. Sometimes they do, Navarro. And you know what's really funny, Silva? I remember when Shield Hero season 2 started. I'm going to remind you of something that I think you might have forgot about. When there was like, I think it was like the first 3 episodes of Shield Hero season 2 was out. This anime YouTuber that I watch had described it in a video saying, "Hey, they changed a bunch of stuff which is just slowing down the pace and is just going badly." And I specifically remember talking to you about that, Selva. We were only like 3 episodes into the season, and you were like, "It's not that bad." No, no, they didn't really change that much. And then apparently it just got worse and worse. Hmm. Yeah, for season 2. Hmm. I kind of got I kind of got bored with Shield Hero just cuz like, yeah, Shield Hero just feels like this weird deconstruction meme of isekai anime, and like the villain just doesn't grab me at all. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying it's a bad story. Um, but like, I love the idea of a shield hero because I love defensive, tanky, damage mitigation things. I love shields. I love defensive styles where like you are harder to hit and more durable. I love heavy armor. And that was one of the things I liked about Bofuri, Naberu. I like the ideas. I like the ideas behind Bofuri, but then when I watched a Bofuri, it seemed like it was just kind of cute girls doing cute things, except in an MMO. And it was just like a slice of life anime. And I can't really get into slice of life animes. Yeah, yeah, that's true, Nabiru. Um, because who thinks that the defensive little girl is going to eat her enemies? Well, like, the- yeah, I guess Nabiru. I will admit the girl in Bofuri is much more. Oh goodness, Silva. So like what you're talking about, Silva, about the real antagonist not being revealed. Ah, oh goodness, 4 years. Like what you're talking about with the main antagonist not being revealed yet, Silva. The only antagonist we have to start off with is mine, and I just don't like her as an antagonist. Like it, she's just so such a. It feels like almost not quite a character. It's hard to put. Um, and like it just feels like this hard revenge boner. Why is my music just off? Let me do something real quick. Okay, there. I backed up a little bit in the live stream of the synthwave radio. Yeah, like I just didn't really. I just didn't. Something like that. And like so much time and so much of the character's development is based on him being betrayed by mine. And uh this entire drive of like I've been betrayed by the beautiful girl, I've been lied to, like it. I'm not saying his feelings were petty. I'm like the thing is the story makes his feelings justified. The story is written in such a way that like his feelings are justified. It just didn't catch me. And like the fact that it was all of it was like a religious allegory for like people hating the shield hero because of racism. Like the fact that it all circled back around, because wasn't the whole thing that the old shield hero stood with the demi-humans, and um like the king had stood against the demi-humans, and people hated the demi-humans because of how freakish they saw them, and there was and so everyone hated the shield for allying with the demi-humans. Well, like that's all I had to go on. That's all they gave us. But I also know that author burnout is real, and it's definitely a thing where people get burnt out and uh just don't get any more stuff done on their stories. I have so many half finished stories. Ugh. But that's also why I could never publish a light novel, because I want my story to be done before I publish it. Maybe they're doing what WB did with Batman. For a long time, uh, WB, Warner Brothers, uh, thought that they had all these restrictions with how Batman could be used in any media. They were okay with Batman being used in animated media, but like live action stuff, um, you could use the Batman world, you could use the Batman mythos, Batman characters, but they didn't want Batman himself on the live action screen unless it was on a big scale and it was something that they were in control of. And they thought if they went long enough without any live action Batman, that it would be much easier for them to release a successful Batman movie because people would want it more. That's the entire reason for the Arrowverse. It's actually really funny. So, like, when Smallville was coming out, they wanted to introduce Batman and have a young Bruce Wayne meeting Clark Kent and then introduce the Justice League and all that stuff, right? Well, uh when like Warner was like, "No, we hold the rights to any live action Batman. You cannot use live action Batman on Smallville." They were like, "Well, what do we do?" Uh, I think it's WB. I think WB is the one who owns uh the big wigs who owns the DC movie rights. But anyway, one of them. And they were like, "What do we do? We have all these partially written stories that deal with a rich, like young billionaire putting together a team of superheroes." And they're like, "Well, you know what other superheroes' main power is being rich? Green Arrow." So they just put Green Arrow in Smallville. And then when Smallville ended, they were like, "Do we bring back the same character, the same actor to do just a continuation of Smallville, but based around Green Arrow, around Ollie starting the Green Arrow and all the people who played the different characters in Smallville, or do we start fresh and start and reboot an entire new Green Arrow?" And they decided to go for an entire new Green Arrow. They got Stephen Amell, and then the Arrowverse was born. So, but yeah, all of that was born because Warner was like, "We think if we give people a drought of live action Batman, if we don't release any live action Batman, we don't let Batman be seen on the screen, then people will be more hungry for it. And then when we do release it, it'll be a slam dunk, it'll be a smash hit, and it will be super successful, and we'll be able to milk it for tons of money for the future." So all that to say, maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they're thinking a lot of people like Shield Hero. It's really popular. It's really big. If we don't release Shield Hero, the readers will get ravenous for it, and then we'll be able to do so much merchandising, anime, movie, maybe some music CDs, and all that shenaniganry. Maybe they're just trying to pull a Batman. That's an interesting one, Nabiru. Here's something to think about. Imagine an isekai, but the main antagonist is the god that summons the main character. So is the antagonist, is that god just summoning the main character expressly to like to challenge them, to amuse them? Main character was summoned to a fantasy world as their game character, but the truth is the main character is actually acting as a lid. What is he? Is he being a cap, stopping some progression of something? Main character's body is stopping the character from exerting full power or sharing knowledge. Oh, okay. Okay. It's amusing because it makes you wonder how alive the NPCs are if the main character is summoned solely as a lid. Okay. There was this one anime I saw like the first episode of because I think I told you about this. It was like how I brought God to a godless world or something. And I saw it because like when the first episode aired, uh people were talking about it and they're like, I can't believe it did this like one you buy thing in the first episode, right? In the first like 5 minutes. And I was like, there's no way they actually did that on it. Yeah, working for God in a godless world. So I watched the first episode, right? And I was like, eh. I was kind of on board, kind of. And then like turns out that the god was a lowly and like after I watched the episode, the implications of the episode finally caught up to me. And the implication, because the main character wished to go to a world. Uh, uh, the main character had wished to go to a world with no gods, and the implication was that a world with no gods and no religion would have no value on life and would not value human life in any way, shape, or form, and people would be expected to unalive themselves or let themselves become unalived for the good of the community, and there'd be no individual freedoms. And this implication that somehow individual freedoms and individuality and is all of that is tied to the gods. It's tied to having some kind of religion. And like as soon as I realized that, that just bugged me. Like that that just really bugged me. And I'm like, because I'd made the joke. Originally I'd made the joke that like when the main character called up for the god to show up, if the god had been a giant robot god that showed up and saved them, right? That uh that would have been cool. If it had been a giant robot god. I think that might have also been part of what inspired this story. What do you mean that's the plot of Log Horizon, Nabiru? I haven't seen Log Horizon in so long, but I don't remember there being any references to religion in Log Horizon. I only saw like the first like one, maybe two seasons. Yeah, I remember that. But wasn't the thing that every time you respawn, you lose like a tiny bit of your memory? You lose just a tiny bit of your experience, and some people died so much they started to forget their old life before they got isekai'd because it was a bunch of people that got isekai'd. I could have swore it was in the first like 3 to maybe 5 episodes that they discovered the memory thing. And they didn't make it publicly known or something because they didn't want people to freak out about it. Is shockwaves one word or two? Hold on. I could have swore shockwave was one word. Oh, it's normally spelled with two words, but it can be spelled as one word. Okay. Spelled shockwave or can be spelled shockwaves. Okay. I remember, so, okay, I'm going to be weeby for a second, right? When I was heavily involved in Vanguard, Cardfight Vanguard, I had a group of people that we were a team. We trained together, we practiced together, we did team events together because Vanguard had the team tournaments, and uh, we we were trading for each other. We were helping each other get cards. We were a crew, a squad, and Log Horizon had just came out. It was currently airing when we formed, and we used to love watching Log Horizon at one of our friends' houses. Well, it's our friend's girlfriend, but she was a part of the team too. Uh, as we were as we were gaming, we used to love what we would love watching like the new episodes of Log Horizon, right? So we called ourselves Team Horizon, and we used to make YouTube videos. We used to go to events. We did all kinds of stuff, and that was one of my first things. I think that was like my first like YouTube experience was as part of Team Horizon. But yeah, when you mention Log Horizon, that always makes me think of Team Horizon in my start. That's where I got started with content creation. Actually, there's one other thing I need to address. Hold on. Just thought about something. 4 to 5 weeks. Okay, and it's only been a matter of days. Okay, that makes sense. Almost spelled need like kneading bread when I was trying to say need to know. So what's happening here in the story is um the main characters have just stolen some food and supplies to give to the abandoned outpost, right? And as they're on their way to the abandoned outpost, they see one of the divine beasts coming. And Greg finally fesses up and explains that one of the missions of the divine beasts is to exterminate any outposts that have outlived their usefulness. The outposts are only crewed with people that are deemed expendable or unnecessary for the state church's perfect world. And then whenever the resource dries up that they're working on, they're told that they've been exiled, that they can't come back, and if they come back, they'll be shot on sight. And then, unbeknownst to them, a divine beast. Unbeknownst to them, it doesn't even get that far because a divine beast will show up very shortly after to exterminate them. It's usually covered up and said it's like some kind of rebel attack or something uh, that gets dealt with that. And all the people there are people who don't have families, who don't have anyone that would miss them, don't have anyone that would really even notice they were gone. Um, and a lot of that stems from the fact that, like, in a society built, my imagining of a society structured like the state church is that its survival is so expensive, it's so hard, that people aren't having multiple kids because it's just too expensive and it's too hard to raise them. Uh, while trying to survive in that world, we're already seeing declining birth rates now. Um, but it's going to be the inverse for the rich people, where the rich people are going to be the ones who can afford to have entire legacies and companies split between their hordes of no, well, maybe not hordes, but their multiple children. Hey, Tom. Well, I just finished reading a book yesterday, and that got me in the writing mood. Doing some writing tonight. Writing a scene where the main character and his followers have stolen some supplies in order to take to an outpost that's been abandoned by the state church and to feed and help all the people there. On the way there, they find out that whenever the state church abandons one of these outposts, it sends one of the divine beasts to wipe them out. And so while everybody else is trying to work on evacuating the outpost, the main character is trying to get the beast's attention and lure it away from the outpost to buy everyone time before uh, before he calls Jesus, because he knows that last time when Jesus fought the beast, the shock waves and the collateral destruction was massive, and they're so close to the outpost that if they fight here, there's a good chance that the outpost will get caught in the blasts and will get caught in everything. So he's trying to get the divine beast's attention and and lure it away from the outpost. Kinda. This is the end of Act 1. Yeah, this is chapter 9. So this is the end of Act 1, and this is going to be the moment that starts to propel the main character into more of the conflict that happens in Act 2. I don't exactly know, because I'm only planning things out kind of 3 chapters at a time. So once I'm finished with this, I'll plan out the next 3 chapters and then figure out where I'm going from there. Massive ring covered in eyes. Yeah, I'm doing the massive ring with the eyes. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. That's what I want to avoid, Tom. But know I still need some kind of structure. I can't go full seat of my pants. So I am making an outline. I'm just only making it 3 chapters at a time. I make 3 chapters, write those 3 chapters, then I make the next 3 chapters, write those 3 chapters, and so on. I have some general ideas about plot twists and things I want to have later on in the story. Um, but uh, that's for later. We'll see what it looks like and how I eventually get to those. Oh, I know you do. I fully well know you do, Tom. Uh, I'm sure I can come up with a few moral dilemmas of my own. Like what's gonna happen? Like when the party may have, uh, yeah. Uh, that sentence doesn't work. Hey, wait, what? No, good to see you. How have you been? How was your week? Oh, what book did you get, Tom? The book I got this week was Iron Widow, which that's that was definitely an interesting read. But what was the book you got, Tom? Oh, you'll send me a pic? Okay. Week's been interesting finding a house. Oh, I'm sorry about your brother getting sick. Wait, what? No. I hope it's something treatable. Oh, you sent it as a DM? Okay. Let me take a look at what this book was. What was this book that Tom was reading? Ooh. Ooh, I see why you didn't say anything. Interesting. All right. He's getting better, but was looking pretty bad. Oh. Yeah, I hope he recovers really well. Wait, what? No. I'm glad things are looking up for him. Oh. A number. Oh, okay. Uh, a number between 1 and 100. All right. Well, I'm gonna go for the default. Uh the stereotypical number of 77. Oh wow. Wait, what? No, that's really rough. That's always one of the worst, most dangerous things whenever it comes to like to stomach bugs and stuff is dehydration. Well, it's good that he's recovering. Wait, what? No. It's great that he's recovering and that it's great that things are looking better for him. I'm very I'm sad that it happened, but I'm glad that he's starting to recover. The heroes receive a request to stop a necromancer who's robbing graves to create undead. They learn the necromancer is using the undead to run a large farm that supports the surrounding villages. Ah, that's a moral dilemma. So that dilemma is interesting, and that also that reminds me of the one interaction with the necromancer in your game, Thrall, the one who was using the undead in order to maintain the sewer system. Um, that feels like kind of the same thing, except in this instance, uh, yeah, the necromancer. In this instance, the necromancer is literally robbing graves of people. So, like taking people's loved ones' remains. Uh, that's a doozy, Tom. Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's the thing, Nabiru. Like, as long as yes, it would be traumatizing to families to see their loved ones' bodies picking potatoes. Um, Especially because he's disturbing them from their eternal rest. And the big key factor is no matter how much good he's doing, he does not have permission. He doesn't have permission to be using these bodies. If he went to these people who like if he went to the people the families of the people who were buried in these graveyards and he was like, "Hey, I'm going I'm going to be growing food. I'm going to be using these undead to grow food that's going to be used to feed everyone and be available to you. Would you be okay with your loved one's remains being used towards this noble endeavor?" I think there might be some people that, with the offer of free food, or like with the offer of free food and help, especially in like the kind of medieval fantasy world that a lot of TTRPGs, a lot of D&D stuff takes place in, where like survival is hard if you're a commoner, um, might take that deal. It might be traumatizing. Yeah, similar to those who donate their bodies into science. But uh, yes, I feel like. So you know what that actually reminds me of now that you mention it, Tom? It reminds me of the whole debate with AI using being trained with different art. Um, and like how a lot of like this difference between opt out versus opt in, and like what it means whenever things are being used for these kind of pseudo commercial purposes without permission. But here's the thing, right? If the necromancer refuses to cooperate, if the necromancer refuses to ask for permission, then he has to be stopped. No matter how noble his endeavor, if he refuses to ask for permission, if he refuses to cooperate, if he refuses to negotiate, if he refuses to honor the if he refuses to honor the wishes of the living family members, then like he has to be stopped. Hmm. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Yeah, without a solution for consent, it gets tricky. Stop the necromancer and endure a possible food shortage, where others may die, or allow it and violate the burial wishes and cause of the conflicts. Yes, exactly, Tom. Laster. Later. Okay, one more not 77. Uh, you know what? Let's do one kind of evil one. Uh 66. I'm sure that's quite an evil one. But yeah, I said, can you hear me? Did I mute myself? Okay, no. All right. But yeah, as for why I had to go, my roommate decided to sort through laundry in the middle of the night. Um, and needs me to help him go through stuff to pull out what few things are mine. I don't think there's that much stuff of mine because I think I got most of my stuff out of laundry already. Uh, and we're actually going to be ending stream a little bit early. I'm going to probably do one more passage and then we'll go to just chatting and then winding down because he asked me if I could end stream at 11 in order to help him with the remainder of the laundry. I don't even think there's that much stuff of mine in there, but it's also kind of symbolic of just like helping out around the house. Like he asked for my help, so I'm going to help. Okay, this needs to not be a giant paragraph. Oh, okay. Let's see what this says. Okay. The party is hired to drive off a group of not nice people using magic to awaken trees and grow plants to attack a nearby city. However, the not nice people are actually druids that seek to regrow the forest where the mayor's men burned it to the ground to expand their city. The druids do not see them as acts of not niceness, but as an attempt to protect nature from the ones that destroyed it and replaced with civilization. Ooh, that's a moral dilemma because uh on the one hand, right, you've got like this thing about preservation of nature and the value and importance of nature. Um mm, yeah, you've got the value and importance and um taking care of nature, which has a lot more. I I guess Nabaru. I've never seen the Lorax. Um, the whole thing about like nature and taking care of nature takes on a whole new meaning in a fantasy setting, especially a fantasy setting where actually let me save what I have so far. We didn't get much writing done, but I think it was a good night. I like this with shorter paragraphs. Um, all right. Okay. Let's wind down and talk about that for a little bit. Okay. So like in a fantasy setting, right? Um, you uh taking care of nature isn't just taking care of the nature around you, not just taking care of uh not just taking care of your environment and being responsible to the world that you live in, which is important. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever. But in a fantasy setting, very often forests and trees and nature um are somehow connected to some kind of like spiritual force um that will lash out and become dangerous if angered or disturbed, or there's some kind of guardian of the woods if people build without respecting the woods. Um, with there's some like much more tangible consequences, much more tangible and immediate consequences to not taking care of nature. Which I'm not saying that like environmental problems are not tangible, and I'm not trying to downplay anyone's spiritual experiences with the forest. I'm just talking about how like it takes on a different connotation in a fantasy setting. Um, and that is a hard one because like so the elves and a lot of other like and a lot of the other like fantasy humanoids will develop some kind of way to live with nature, to build their cities and their civilizations in ways that respect the nature of and the sanctity of the wood, and will build their stuff with this very organic construction that is like incorporated and that is incorporating the woods with the buildings in ways that preserve and respect the woods. Traditionally, humans are usually the ones who live in much more like historical cities that have to be cleared, that have to be uh, that don't have as much space for growing things in the cities. Um, right. But like humans normally are are the ones who are doing that destructive and damaging behavior, like in this case, burning down sections of the wood in order to make space to expand the city. Um, that like that's an interesting uh well, of course that's going to anger any kind of spiritual essence. Um, and it's like who's to say like that extra space that was made by expanding that city um could be housing lots of people and businesses and other individuals are uh that are just living life, you know, that haven't done anything intrinsically wrong besides trying to exist. So that's a real tough one, Tom. That's a real tough one. I don't know which side I'd pick on that, right? I think it would depend on the character and the character's alignment and what the character was after. Um, if I was running a more religious character that had like some ties to the natural world, I'd probably be like on the side of the druids and just be like trying to negotiate with the city and say, listen, you need to pull your city back. This land belongs to the wood. It wasn't yours to build on. Um, but if I was more, that would be more if I was like kind of, I guess maybe chaotic might be a thing, or like more of like a, uh, looking at the good of the world over the good of people. Like if I was more of a lawful, civilized, civilized isn't the right word. Like, I mean, ideally, you'd want to be like, hey, expand some trees and try to have a good mixture of trees uh and houses. Um, but like that's not always a realistic option. And like if the people of whatever species they are uh did that construction in a destructive way, they probably aren't going to be happy about having to change their practices and change their lives because like people who are focused on expanding civilization and developing humanity as it were um very rarely like being told no. They very rarely like being told that they have to adjust what they're doing. Yes, that would be the ideal, Tom, but like also understanding like like looking again at examples in our own world, a lot of these like air quotes forward thinkers, a lot of these people who are so developed on expanding human civilization and yeah, it's going to be resistant to change. And like they're not going to like being told that they have to change what they were going to do. They have to change their habits. They have to slow down. Um, Even if it's something simple like don't dump your trash in the forest, people are going to be like, well, where are we supposed to put our trash then? Um, and it's gonna take some negotiation. Like, I don't know, it would really depend. Like, if I look at like how Drone, my current character, would interact with it, he'd probably try to negotiate some kind of a cooperation between the people and the druids to come to some kind of compromise and a peaceful solution that doesn't end with losing lives. All right. Let's change up the music a little bit for the last few minutes. This is what I like about doing the Lofi Girl music for my streams, is that like I can use one attribution for the Lofi Girl playlist, for the Lofi Girl fan link, and say I got my music from here, and I have like 3 playlists to choose from, depending on the situation. But yeah, like I said, we're gonna be ending a little bit early tonight because my roommate needs my help with the laundry. But yeah, those are some really good moral dilemmas, Tom. That's really interesting. Oh, it's not a problem at all, Tom. I value your input and I value your participation in these streams. It means a whole lot to me. Uh, so the book I read this week was Iron Widow by Jiran J. Zhao. I think I pronounced that right. I hope I pronounced that right. And it's this interesting book that looks at these snippets and ideas and themes and practices from Chinese history and looks at what it looks like when you bash them together, these historical figures and these concepts, and you change some things and you tweak some things and you put them in this fantasy world with giant robots. And that's honestly a big part of why I was inspired to get it, was because like it is a successful novel about giant robots, about mech pilots. Um, and I realized that if I want to write a successful story, I should read the like if I want to write a successful book, I should read the successful books that are similar to what I'm writing, get some ideas from what they're doing, like what I can do differently, how I can improve. And one of the big things I was trying to do with this that I think I need to work on is work on how I handle point of view. Um in Iron Widow, there's this very dialed in and very personal point of view for the pilots. But then as soon as they gain control of their machines, like it's describing it almost a third person view. It's like almost a third person point of view, but not quite. Um, it's describing things that are happening to the machine, and it still zooms in to talk about what's going on with the pilots. Um, and it's this very interesting thing that they do with point of view. I think my favorite moral dilemmas are time related, like you unalive a character that could cause the end of the world if you knew about them ahead of time. I'm not a big fan of time travel shenanigans, honestly. I feel like once you introduce time travel to a story, you start to play with um you start to play with a whole lot of fire, and there's always the possibility of um just undermining the weight of some actions if they can just be constantly and instantly undone. Which kind of is weird for me to say because like my Sunday Lancer game, oh, future prediction. Yeah, that even gets more weird, Nabiru. Yeah, premonitions of consequences. Do you like that kind of gets into some of the theme of um you all have probably heard of the Civil War in Marvel Comics. Well, they tried to do a second Civil War comic event, multi-comic event, in Marvel, like years after the first one was really successful and popular. It wasn't as popular, it wasn't as big of a thing, but it dealt a lot with that idea with a person who had the ability to see predictions of the future, and then but the images and the predictions were like out of context. They were just images of a situation that would happen in the future, and you had one side that wanted to punish people who were shown committing crimes or doing bad things in these future premonitions, and they wanted to take this person with this power and use them to and like drive them to like not quite madness, but like drive them to use their powers extensively in order to see more and then stop a whole bunch of crimes and bad things from happening before they happened. And the other group's like, you're getting these images completely out of context, don't know what led up to them, you don't know what happened, can't punish someone for a crime they haven't even committed yet. And then, if I remember correctly, it had this really unsatisfying ending where like as things were reaching yeah, if I remember reading about it that like as things were reaching like a fever pitch and coming to a head and people were starting to make decisions and pick sides and stuff was just getting really intense, the dude who was having the premonitions just like ascended to like another level of existence and like floated up and just became something else. Oh, 1 second. All right, I'm back. My roommate just finished dealing with the laundry without me, so I don't have to end early tonight. We have more time. I'm just gonna have to go in a second to turn off the water. Yeah. Uh yeah, Iron Man did not like it. It was quite an interesting comic thing. But yeah, I think that was how wasn't that how it ended, Tom? Like the guy who was like they were using for their prediction stuff like ascended to another level and became like was it like a watcher or something? Some kind of like ascended being. Give me 1 second. Yeah, right? You like joined eternity, ascended into something. Well, since I've got more time, uh let's do Tom, you want to do one more moral dilemma we can chit chat for the last little bit now that I got some time? I'll do a random number generator instead of just picking numbers. 95 is what the random number generator gave me. Thanks for coming, Silva. It was great having you. It was wonderful talking to you, and you are a valued member of this community. Okay, sure. We can go with Rule 34. Well, I picked the first two. Oh, we're just gonna random number generate? Finally got some water. I've been talking all night and I've been thirsty. All right. Let's see. Oh, geez. Tom's been quiet for a while. I wonder what this one is. Players get hired by a wizard hunted by twisted creature for protection. Turns out these creatures used to be living people, the wizard's former apprentices who are coming back for revenge. Ooh. Ooh, okay. So, like, on the surface, this looks really simple. Like, these, uh, these people, these apprentices, are looking for revenge for being turned into. Oh, yeah. See, that's where it get complicated. The twisted creatures are hurting other people as well. The twisted creatures didn't start as twisted creatures. They started as whatever their original species was. Um, and uh, so that's a thing. Um, and the next question, like, can the wizard even turn them back? Like at first you were like, okay, yeah, I'll help the wizard, you know. Yeah, getting hired by a wizard's always iffy. Like you never know if they're like an evil mastermind or something because wizards are just so dangerous and so smart and so powerful. Oh, if the wizard can't turn them back, um, if the wizard can't turn them back, uh, then like if killing the wizard won't turn them back, what they need to do is they need to like I would probably want to get them to like well for one I want to make sure the wizard's not continuing to do this. Like if the wizard is still doing this to people, then like yes, he has to be stopped, right? If the wizard is like still luring people in for apprenticeships and then experimenting on them to turn them into twisted creatures, then yes, the wizard absolutely has to be stopped. Um but at some point the people are going to have to learn to live with what they've been turned into. um if there's no way to turn them back, they can't keep hurting people, they can't keep attacking people, they have to learn um how to function. But also the thing is, will society even give them a chance? Will they ever be given a chance to survive? Because they'll be different, they'll be, you know, the unclean, the horrid, the the things that are like an insult to nature and blah blah blah. Um, so yeah, that's rough. Like so yeah, my priorities would be number one, make sure the wizard is not continuing to do this. If the wizard is continuing to do this, stop the wizard. Stop the wizard, get him arrested, captured, do what you have to do to stop the wizard from continuing to do this. That is I'd say my first priority. To stop this problem from continuing. Because if you pacify or negotiate with the apprentices, Like, what are you like? The problem's gonna continue. Ooh, 34. The party must bring a healer from her remote village to the capital so she can heal an ailing king who has an evil successor. But she is busy fighting an outbreak of disease at home. Ooh, that is a good one. That is a really good one. Do you like that's one of those rough moral dilemmas where it's like if you pull the healer uh from their duties, then the disease will run rampant, killing, tons of people, maybe hundreds of people, right? So like, is it worth it? Uh uh if like that'd be so hard because it's a thing where like it with the disease one, they either die, you either lose a lot of people to the disease, or you lose a lot of people to the actions of the evil successor, whatever the evil successor is up to, and like the king dies, and then you're still trading lives, and it's a really rough decision. That's a really intense one. All right. So it's funny. There's this pipe uh that runs directly over my computer. That's a water pipe that takes water to the backyard hose where I live. And so in order to use the hose, yeah, many people would take care of the wizard. Absolutely. Help the healer first, some way to discover the cause and the cure, because if the outbreak isn't stopped, it'll spread and the evil successor schemes won't matter after a while. That's true. Yeah, I guess like if you could help the healer resolve the outbreak and then deliver the healer to the town, but then like the longer you wait, the more likely that the evil successor is going to finish off and assassinate the sick and ailing king. Yeah, but then what are you going to do at that point? You know? But yeah, so there's this pipe, and then in order to turn on the hose outside out back, you have to turn this knob to get the water flowing through it. Um, and that gets when that happens, water drips out of this pipe at the end. And last time they did it, it like almost flooded where I was. So we got a bucket now, and now the bucket's kind of balanced on something. And I keep looking over, and I'm worried the bucket's gonna fall over and like dump a bunch of water on the floor, and then it'll just be even worse. So I keep looking over and looking at it. If it's gonna bug me, I might as well fix it. I'm just gonna move stuff and then set the bucket directly on the floor so that way it doesn't like go flying. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Uh, yeah, the moment you leave, the evil one will just do it again. Yeah, so the evil successor is going to have to be dealt with at some point. Yeah, that's a rough one, Tom. Hmm. Yeah, but yeah, that's an interesting, like, it's an interesting dilemma to deal with. Because like you're stuck with like moral dilemmas are always challenging. I think that solving a finding a solution to a moral dilemma causes a lot of growth in a character and shows a lot about a character. Um, and I think that's really important for like any kind of role playing game is to go through like some kind of growth as a character. Yes. Like yeah, so then if you're saying that like if you save the king, he'll deal with the evil successor and then the kingdom will be saved, but there's still a disease running rampant in the like on the frontier, like the best. And that's why it's a really good moral dilemma is because like there's good answers all the way around, right? There's good logic between all of the different major decisions you could make. If you take the time to try to help the healer cure the outbreak, right, of whatever disease is running rampant, right, you run the risk of you yourself getting it, right, and becoming another person who needs to be cured. Um, and you don't know how long that's going to take. That just adds travel time. Well, if you're assuming that the rightful king is going to deal with the evil successor once he's healed, then I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, if you help with the village, that's going to give more time for the evil king to poison and eventually kill the true king. It creates this difficult situation. Yeah, and that just adds to the moral dilemma, Nabiru. You save the king who's already old and dying rather than a village just in a spreading of a virus or something. Yeah, twist good to make it bad. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's see if there's anything else to react to in the last few minutes before we wind down. It was nice to have a little bit extra time to talk about stuff. Still have to see Across the Spider Verse. I know it's been in the news recently. Yeah, so reading Iron Widow was really interesting, and like it's really funny because like after I'd already decided to get the book, I found this trailer that the author had put on YouTube because the author has a successful YouTube channel of the author of Iron Widow, and it was a joke about how they resolve the love triangle in Iron Widow, right? And they resolve it by letting it be an actual triangle where all 3 points are connected to the other 2 points. And not having like jealousy or fighting or anyone choosing anybody over anyone else. They went for the poly ending. And it was interesting to see something that would have normally been like this big secret reveal being used to advertise the book. But like just because I knew it was going to happen didn't mean I knew how it was going to happen or where it was going to happen. So I had that anticipation of waiting for it to happen. But the way it happened was really interesting and really well done. And like there were so many points that led up to it, that just made it this intense payoff. And having it as part of a trailer to advertise the book is really an interesting choice. Like someone commented on the video, they were like, advertising something like turning something like this instead of just being a spoiler, turning it into advertising is really brave, blah blah blah. And they're like, trust me, I have plenty of other surprises for you in this book. Oh, excuse me. And they really did. They really. There was a lot of. Yeah, it was a really Iron Widow was a really good book, and it's really funny. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like the main reason I thought it was okay to like I decided to let myself get invested in these characters and get this book is because I saw it was a 2 book series. So I was like, oh, okay. There's a second book, so I'll get to see where this stuff goes. It won't be one of those things where I just finish the first book and I'm just left completely unsatisfied and need the next book. So in my head, because I looked and Amazon has a listing for the second book, right? Amazon has a listing for the second book. I have a price up there for the Kindle and for the audiobook, and they say that the hardcover is out of stock. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll buy the first book, I'll read it, and then probably next month or the month after that, after I, save up, deal with bills, deal with all that other stuff, I'll buy the second book, right? I was talking to my friend about it. I'm like, have you read the second book? And we were talking, they're like, oh, is it up for pre-order? I'm like, what do you mean? It was published, and I click on the thing to see when the publication date was. When I tell you, the second book doesn't come out till 2024, and they were selling pre-orders for them. So yes, I am I am in the situation I didn't want to be in, where I'm just stuck waiting for the sequel. Uh, yeah, I like Amazon bamboozled me. Amazon completely and utterly bamboozled me. Like I was like this close. I was like a hair away from like tagging the author on Twitter and being like, why does Amazon say your book is like? But I mean, it does, if you click on the publication date, it does say that it's not out yet, right? But it doesn't say that it's selling pre-orders. Um, it's got the cover art. It's got everything. So I just thought the book was out of stock right now, and I'm like, oh, the book probably just came out. But yeah, I'll probably reread the book a few times. I'll reread some parts of the book to try to internalize it better, learn from some of the story writing elements. Uh, and see what I can glean, what I can use, what I can't, what I like, how I can improve my writing based on what I've read. It's always a journey of trying to improve yourself, you know. Oh, the writing collab went really well. So, for the collab, Tom, we did a prompt challenge where we generated a random prompt at the start of uh at the start of the stream, and then we each wrote a story in our own style that was trying to deliver on that prompt. And we gave ourselves like 2.5 hours to do that. And then at the end, after we both had written our short stories for the prompt, um, we read each other's stories and gave our thoughts and feelings on it. My story was more of like a narrative, like very narrative, uh, very loose. I only really had like everything was told from this kind of third person perspective, and it was told like kind of a free flowing story with only a few quotes here and there to zoom in on certain moments in order to encapsulate an entire space opera story. And Hero Girls, what she did was she wrote like these like two or three scenes that were just like really emotional and dialed in and very specific and detailed. And it was really interesting to see how like we approached the same prompt from different directions. It was really interesting. I think we both put links to our stories up in on my Discord in the writing corner channel. um Check. Yeah, writer's corner. Uh, we both put our Google Doc up of the story we wrote there. But yeah, we both approached it from different ways, from different directions. And it was interesting to see the way that we each like approach the same prompt. Actually, I didn't even put my notes for my prompt up there. I just put the story. Maybe I'll put like my notes up there. So the primary character was a professor who's a perfectionist. Secondary character, a xenobiologist who has a strong moral compass. And the plot is it's a biopunk story about hubris. It kicks off in the year 5021 with an 11th hour invention. Note that someone in the story will be conflicted about duty. And here's the twist: the homicidal AI saves the day. So yeah, I wrote this kind of like space opera-y. Uh, yeah, exactly, Tom. And that was one of the things we really enjoyed exploring in that collab was the how we each approach things differently, and the fact that like having different approaches doesn't mean that uh someone is like better or worse. It just means that we all have different things. I think so. It's really interesting to me because when I was in school, and studying and learning and all that stuff, they always told me that I had to have an outline for everything. If I wanted to do anything, I needed to have an outline for it, and that was just the thing that I had to do, right? Um, and so that was how I learned to do things. But then once I got out and got involved in the writing, like greater writing community on Twitter and stuff, and other writers, yeah, flowcharts and all that other stuff. I learned that I learned about the two primary types of writers, plotters and pantsers. Plotters use plots and plan things out ahead of time. Pantsers go by the seat of their pants, have little to nothing prepared, and just let the story flow out of them as they're going through it, right? Um, and finding out that pantsers who just write by the seat of their pants are accepted, and like they're accepted members of the writing community, and that there are successful pantsers, and that it is seen as a viable and applicable and effective strategy for writing a novel or any story or anything really. Um, that was revolutionary to me. Learning that that was a thing. It may not be my thing. It may not be the thing that I personally do, right? But learning that that was a thing was huge for me. Learning how big the writing world is was just huge for me. Um, and yeah, that was a big deal for me. Anyway, we've hit the 3 hour mark, so let's wind down for the night. We had a number of people in stream tonight. Good. All right. So to Silva, to Superhero 60, to Duelist Otaku Naberu, uh, to we got a heated conversation about anime there in the middle there. I scroll back through uh the chat in order to see who came. To Tom, to Wait What No, and to everyone else who watched the stream and didn't say anything, or to anyone who watches this VOD afterwards, I want to say I love all of you. I believe each and every one of you. I think that each one of you is unique and special and precious and so capable and valid and worthwhile and important. Yes, exactly, Tom. Just because someone does things different doesn't make it any less amazing when you respect the process. Yes. Oh, you're welcome, Tom. I appreciate you. I appreciate having you. And I want to say to all of you that I think that each one of you makes this world a better place just by being in it. And I'm grateful every day to live in a world with you. Thank you for giving me your time, your attention, and your energy. I hope that you always remember the Star Hunter motto: shoot for the stars, have wonderful adventures, live your dreams, and always stop to enjoy the meme. Um, I do ask that you like the stream. It helps the algorithm with pushing it out. At some point, I'm gonna start getting more involved with making more content, but I can't promise when or where or what that'll look like. Um, so yeah, but uh, I do ask that you like the stream. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing on YouTube, feel free to subscribe and ding the notification bell to let you know whenever I go live and when I release any new content. If you have any friends, family, nemesis, enemies, arch enemies, next door neighbors, nosy neighbors, all the stuff, that you think might enjoy my content, feel free to show them my content or invite them to the next stream. Next stream is going to be Monday at 8:30 p.m. EST. At least that's what's scheduled right now. Keep an eye on my Twitter or my Discord, um, where I'll post if that changes. Might be changing up a schedule because of some D&D stuff. We'll see what happens. Um, that's next stream. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing outside of YouTube and also know what updates about when things are going to be happening, feel free to uh, follow me on Twitter or join my Discord. Links to both of those are in the description down below. Always remember, you're never required to donate to be here. You're never required to give money to be a member of this community. And I also want you to know that you don't have to pay to be welcome. You are a valued, important, and worthwhile member of this community. With that said, if you ever feel motivated to donate to improve my stream or to improve life, uh, there are links where you can do that down in the description below. I'm grateful to every person who has donated and helped make the stream possible, make so many things in my life possible. I'm grateful to each and every one of you for everything that you've done and for everything just for being here and for what you've donated and for what the time and effort and energy you've given to help make this community a great place that it is. Have a good night, everybody. And like I said, next stream is going to be Monday, 8:30 p.m. EST. Good night.